Am I the a-hole for making a joke about my brother's affair at his wedding? When I was in elementary school, I was the type of kid who got disrupts class often on their report card, so I never focused much on school. My district had the system where they would pair high schoolers with younger kids to help them with school, etc. And my mom made me do that after I kept getting in trouble. So my tutor was a freshman Abby. So she would come to our house after school to help me with my homework or something. I barely remember her. My brother John was the same age as Abby, so they would talk to each other and end up dating. She stopped tutoring me officially after like a month, but since she was at our house a lot, I also talked to Abby a lot and we were close as well. Fast forward 10 years, Abby and John got married and had a kid together. 5 years later, John tells me that he is getting a divorce because he's met someone new. It sucked because I liked John and Abby together a lot, but whatever. But then he tells me he had an affair with his new girlfriend. Also sucks. And I told him he shouldn't have hurt Abby like that. But whatever. I also asked Abby how she was doing, and she wasn't doing well. But she told me she didn't want her to be the reason I have a bad relationship with my brother. However, 2 months before the wedding, Abby calls me and tells me that my brother's girlfriend has been harassing her nonstop. She showed me the texts, and his girlfriend was saying some pretty disturbing things about how she's so much better than Abby, taunting Abby for having to share custody of her kid now, etc. Just making fun of her and bullying her. I told my brother about this, and he said he would ask his girlfriend about it. A month later, I asked him if he ever brought it up, and he said he did, but saw nothing wrong with the texts, which pissed me off. I confirmed that he saw the same text I saw. Abby apologized for involving me in the whole thing in the first place, and encouraged me to still go to the wedding, where my brother asked me to make a speech. The speech went well until I made a joke. The gist of the joke was me turning to his new wife and telling her that if she's learned anything from this, she should know that my brother will never let his wife stop him from finding the love of his life. This got my brother and his wife really mad, and they kicked me out shortly after. And my brother has been calling/texting me nonstop, yelling at me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You know how vigilantes are technically in the wrong, but we all cheer them on anyway? You're the a-hole, but high five. I read the title and thought, really? You're not sure? And then laughed at the joke. So maybe we're all a-holes. You're the a-hole, but I adore you. Happiness cannot be built on the misery of others, nor it is deserved. Newbie is insecure because she knows once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't know if I agree with you. I'm pretty gleeful about the misery that Opie's brother and mistress, wife number 2, got from the speech. Clearly, you are an a-hole, but I'm not mad at it. Everyone sucks here. Also, if you want to help Abby, tell her to show those texts to her lawyer. Pretty sure the judge in the custody court would not find them amusing. I've never in my life been happy to attend a wedding, but I wish I was at this one. You know you're the a-hole even if they deserved it. It was never your war. You have no right to wage a battle here. Infidelity and co-parenting are your brother, his ex-wife, a new wife's issue. They can fight, play fair, wage war. You can provide your opinion if you'd like, but are not entitled to be an active participant. You are a hero though for the wronged in the story, so perhaps being an a-hole was worth it. I'm sorry, I disagree. I think he's not an a-hole when he actively agrees with and enables his new wife to harass and bully the person she helped the brother cheat on. Maybe it's not his war, but in my opinion, people like this deserve to be called out on their crap and embarrassed for their bad behavior. If she wasn't harassing and bullying the ex, I'd agree with you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my brother's wedding earlier after I was pissed at my sister-in-law? Okay, I'm male 29, have a 10-month-old baby. Everyone in my family knows me and my wife are both new parents, so we are a bit overprotective. I had to go to my brother's wedding last week without my wife since she was a bridesmaid at another wedding. So I had to fly with my son alone and it was really stressful. I was already on edge and my brother and sister-in-law knew this. My brother was very happy that I was bringing my son, but sister-in-law wasn't. She was extremely hostile towards me. So she basically made it a point that she's not going to serve my son food. That was fine with me, so I made plans to bring my own food. When I told her I'd be bringing food, she said I'd need to feed him outside the reception hall. This wasn't an issue. I thought it was weird, but it's fine. So, during the ceremony, he got a little fuzzy, so I took him out to change him. I ended up missing part of the wedding ceremony because I forgot the diapers in my rental car. My brother was really understanding, but once again, my sister-in-law made more snide comments and told me I need to get my son under control. And then made a sarcastic comment saying, "Yeah, I'll just tranquilize him next time." She did not like that joke at all. During the reception, pretty much everyone on my brother's side was coming up to me and trying to meet my baby for the first time. This was the first family gathering I brought my baby to, and everyone just wanted to see him. Well, this didn't sit well with my sister-in-law once again. She was mad everyone's attention was on me and not her. Eventually, she came up to me and told me to stop stealing their moment or I can get out. At that point, I was really tired of her BS, so I just left and went back to my hotel. The next day, my mom and dad were furious at me and asked why I left. I told them and they still took sister-in-law's side. My brother's now mad at me too. I told them straight up that sister-in-law is acting like a child and that I can't make my son stop acting like a baby. Am I the a-hole? The weirdest part here is why your family would take her side if she literally told you to leave. Assuming you hadn't previously been waving your baby around like Lion King, the only reasonable response to stop stealing attention or leave is to leave. Also considering they were included in the people paying attention to the baby, they are actually the a-holes here. Ha ha ha. Thank you for the image of a baby held aloft during the majority of a wedding. Made me laugh. Now, what really happened was that as the bride walks down the aisle, the lights dimmed. And here comes Opie holding his son aloft to a circle of life and presented him to the couple before taking a seat. Not the a-hole, but please do pray for your brother who is now married to an a-hole. Brother probably knows who he married. He is taking her side, so I'm guessing like minds think alike. Really weird for the family to get upset at Opie. I'm confused. How are parents going to be upset that you left early, but then take your sister-in-law's side when you told them she asked you to leave? Like, what were they expecting you to do? And why aren't they upset with sister-in-law? My feeling/reading was that they thought he was rude for leaving early / maybe not saying bye / making a better effort at calming a child. And the taking the sister-in-law's side was more of a she's the bride / deserves the limelight / I can see why she was upset kind of way. Either way, his parents are rude. Sister-in-law and brother also. Not the a-hole. I would let your parents know they are siding with somebody who made a baby be fed outside of the venue over their grandchild. What is wrong with that woman? I'm so sorry about your brother's future divorce. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for screaming at my sister on her wedding day? My 29 female sister Jane, 26 female, got married on Saturday. Jane has been a bit of a bridezilla during this whole thing, and I was one of her bridesmaids, so I had to listen to a lot of it. I gave her the benefit of the doubt in most cases because wedding planning is stressful, as I know firsthand. My son, 4 male, was at the wedding. He has autism and is prone to meltdowns. So bringing him to situations like this is always nerve-wracking, particularly as they are very disruptive to his routine. He was quiet for the first part of the ceremony, but then started getting upset. So my husband took him outside for a while. Then when the meals came, I found out my sister had changed our pre-agreed food order, say foods that elite, to instead match what the other kids were having without telling me. They weren't having any exotic, but my son has very specific sensory issues around food, and I would have brought his food myself if she had told me she was changing it. So I try to feed him this meal and he's having absolutely none of it. He starts having meltdown, and even being taken outside won't soothe him. And of course he's hungry, so that's riling him up too. After a while, I brought him back inside and my sister took me to one side and said she could hear him screaming even from the inside and it made people uncomfortable. She said I should take him home because the reception party would be too much for him. And that when our brother gets married next year, I shouldn't bring him if he causes this much trouble. I just saw red and shouted at her, saying it would have been fine if he could have had his meal. And she didn't need to change it without telling me when she knows how strict he is with routine. And that his autism wasn't the problem here. She was. She stormed off and I did end up taking my son home. We haven't spoken yet this week as she's on her honeymoon, but my parents have said she's furious. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Adding some answers to common questions here. She changed the meal so the kids' plates would all match aesthetically. Yes, we brought safe snacks with us, but not enough for a whole meal. And for everyone wondering why I didn't leave him at home, he was happy at my nephew's birthday party in January when I thought he wouldn't be. So I'm trying to balance when to give him opportunities and when to shield him. Unless you have an autistic child, please try to understand they don't give you a manual for this. So I'm very much just trying to work out what's right for him as I go. We had a contingency plan that involved firstly going outside, and then if that didn't work, taking my son for a drive which calms him. But my sister and I argued before my husband could take him. He wasn't having a full meltdown during the ceremony or anything. He was just grizzly from having to sit still, so my husband took him outside to de-escalate. Now for the comments. Not a-hole. It was her fault. Assuming she was the one who unilaterally changed the agreed-on food without notifying you. Weddings are rough on kids, but Opie had things smooth until the sister set them up for failure. Talk about petty. I bet she wouldn't have even wanted Opie to bring food from home for the son, because that would have looked tacky. Hangry's a thing for a reason. Not a-hole. She literally brought this on herself. His meal had zero impact on her, so why change it? The sister might have been trying to make Opie's son normal or whatever. Honestly disgusting. I mean, it wasn't Instagram pretty. Clearly, that's a better reason to change it than feeding your autistic nephew. Everyone is the a-hole except your son who was struggling before the switching of meals. Putting a child with sensory challenges in a situation where they needed to be quiet and well-behaved for hours, despite being in an overwhelming environment, isn't the best idea. As his parent, you could have avoided that by keeping him home or pulling him out of the reception immediately. It can be extremely disruptive to a wedding to have any kids, even more so when they are prone to meltdowns. This was a child-friendly wedding. There was a kids' table and all the neurotypical children were there. I didn't want to leave my son out just because he's autistic. He can be very well behaved. It's not a given that he'll have a meltdown. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my in-laws see our babies? My in-laws and my husband never had a great relationship. My in-laws thought mistreating my husband was a normal thing all families did, and they shouldn't be held accountable for it. But of course my husband wasn't happy. Once we moved out together after being together for 5 years, my husband decided to limit contact. We still talk to them, but just to check on them. And we only visited once in 2 weeks just to keep some slight minimal contact, but not too much. During our first years together, my in-laws claimed they loved me, but they always try to get my husband to date another woman they thought was a better fit for him. That woman had tried to get between us multiple times, and she took pride in the fact that she was trying to be a home wrecker. Even after my husband and I got engaged, that woman still tried to sneak in, but my husband would block her every time. My in-laws, despite knowing the damage this woman tried to cause, still kept close contact with her and hanged out with her. In my face unprovoked? One time they claimed that they'll hang out with whoever they want and any issue we have is none of their business. I was hurt that they preferred another woman over me, and the fact that they valued this woman more than their own son/brother and his happiness. But there's nothing we could do. We took the approach that you can hang out with whoever you want, and we have the right to set our own boundaries and decide if we are comfortable with that or if we should just distance ourselves. So that's what we ended up doing, as I mentioned in the first paragraph. We made sure to not include them as much in our wedding preparations either. We didn't trust that they wouldn't leak vendor information to that woman, since they always favored her and we had suspicions that they enabled her too. Recently, I gave birth to 2 twin girls. My in-laws came to meet the babies, took pictures and all, and my husband's sister sent several pictures of the babies to that other woman. That woman texted my husband pictures of our babies and claimed how beautiful the babies are. Sister-in-law admitted she sent the pictures, and she was unapologetic about it, and claimed she doesn't need our permission to text pictures to people. My in-laws all claimed we are being too dramatic over this. My husband and I decided to not let my in-laws and his siblings to see our babies any longer. They claim that doing this is a a-hole move because we are only doing it because I'm jealous of the other woman. Indeed I am. I'm bitter for whatever has happened and how they enabled her. But I'm also hurt about our boundaries being crossed every time. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your kids are basically been used in this weird drama your in-laws and women are creating. I would not contact the lot and probably move away, because this is some weird stuff. Also, your husband is slightly weird. Why is he in contact with this weird woman? He's not. He used to be friends with her before we dated, but he stopped speaking to her after the first mess she tried to create. Then why isn't she blocked on his phone, or what have you? She's making new accounts or text from different numbers. He blocks every single one of them every time. File a restraining order. That's some stalker BS. Not stay home. They're not respecting your boundaries. Well, then it's time to really enforce them. Not stay home. And your sister-in-law is wrong. She does need your permission to share photos because you're the parent. And she has no right to put your kids' safety at risk by distributing them to anyone. You and your husband need to send a clear message to this other woman that she needs to get a life and back off. And your in-laws need to be given conditions if they do visit, due to at this point not being able to be trusted. Good luck. Indeed, this whole situation is gross, and I feel so bad that the family cares so little for husband's happiness and well-being. That woman is a stalker for crying out loud, and they invited her and encouraged her to break up Opie and her husband. How messed up is that? And sister-in-law definitely needs permission to show pictures. They're Opie's babies, not hers. Not today, Hall, and I'm so sorry they are dealing with us. After seeing that this woman has been making problems even before Opie and parents still encouraged her, I think they're right to go straight to no contact rather than a her or the baby's ultimatum. This woman is too dangerous for even that compromise. Not stay home. They literally invited a stalker into your life. I mean, I understand this woman has a crush on your husband, but this is crazy. She will try to get into his life no matter how she can, and she will always undermine you. For all we know, she's super crazy and was looking at your babies thinking, all of these will be my stepkids someday. I know that sounds extreme, but I have been around enough insane people like that in my life that I wouldn't put it past her. Since they continue to feed a fire, you're absolutely within the right to protect your family and those babies.